Tonight we've got a really special guest. It's one of my favorite podcaster, and he does a lot of stuff. He's one of the most specialist in the analysis of the occult symbolism and pop culture. His name is Isaac Weishaupt. Welcome to the Cosmos Show. I'm really glad that you accept my invitation.
Oh, of course, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on here and reaching out. I'm looking forward to this. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. I'm a big fan. You have to know. I did listen to all your shows from the last 5 years, but you're in the area of truth telling from way more than 5. You did start around 2012 because you wrote 6 books so far, and you're working on some next. Am I right here?
Okay. That's close enough.
Okay,
right, yeah.
So you wrote your first book in 2012, but prior to that, you had a blog. But my first question is, what did spark your mission or your vocation to telling the truth about the Illuminati, and what sparked now I'm a regular guy who went to the army, and then now I'm gonna be a truther, and I've got a mission to tell the world what's going on. What sparked your passion?
Yeah, I love that question, and I'll try to keep it fairly brief. And for me, it goes back to growing up in the 80s and 90s, and I was always intrigued by kind of the subcultures of pop culture. For instance, I was into really like Ice-T's Body Count was an album that I had, Two Live Crew, and this was all stuff that was being banned.
You're in the hip-hop heads like me, so we talk the same language. I was in a French rap band in the 90s, so
cool.
So I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Oh, you got to send me links to that. I want to listen to that.
Okay, for sure.
I got a friend out in Australia that's a rapper named Cool B. Shout out Cool B. He does raps and stuff. Yeah, it's cool. I've always been a hip-hop guy, but that was kind of, I've always been drawn to that because they were always the real facing censorship back then, and it was always, my brain was always wired to be like, what's the thing I'm not supposed to be listening to, because that's what I want to listen to, right? And my background growing up, I grew up in a non-denominational Christian household, and it was a strange mix of influences. My parents were my dad was very different from my mother, we'll say, to keep it short. But I would go to church, and my dad would never go to church, but he was very spiritual. He always read the Bible and tried to live a good, positive life, but he just didn't like the organized religion aspect of things. So I kind of got both ends of the viewpoints there, and I kind of was more interested in my dad's view of it, where I saw the value of the message of Christ and the importance of like the morality of it all, but I didn't like the organized religion necessarily. So anyways, 80s and 90s, I'm paying attention to all this sort of like, always been intrigued by the dark stuff, right? Dark, heavy metal and all kinds of stuff.
Horror movies, I guess, too.
Horror, really big into horror movies. I saw Clockwork Orange when I was, I think, like 13, which was probably too young. But I was always real intrigued by this stuff, and especially aliens, right? I was always really into like the X-Files and Fire in the Sky and all kinds of stuff. So that was just kind of my interest. And then when I was in the active duty Air Force, I made friends with a guy who told me about Bill Cooper, who wrote Behold a Pale Horse. And when I got stationed back in the States, I was like, I got to find that book. So I found the book, and I bought it in 2002. And read through
Bill
it.
Cooper did die, I think, in 2001, like right before the 9/11 or something like that. And I think he called it like Alex Jones a couple months prior. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, there was a clip going around. I'd have to check on the details and the dates, but I think you're right. I think it was just prior to 9/11. He was talking about an upcoming disaster, and the feds, as the story goes, the feds raided his property and Yeah, yeah. Who knows what the real truth is? But they say that he fired the first shot and they took him down. I don't know what
Oh,
really
really?
happened there.
Okay. He was killed by the police.
By the FBI. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, it's a layer of mystery there that I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of. Okay, so Bill Cooper was like the one that sparked the flame.
Yeah, he's I call him my red pill daddy. He was the guy who really made me think about all this stuff because he laid out the because before that I was only aware of sort of different elements of the occult, the Illuminati, conspiracy world. I didn't know that they connected at all, right? Until I read Bill Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse, and he talks about working in Navy intelligence and seeing a USO, and then seeing some documents and wondering if there was a disinformation campaign that he was supposed to spread about UFOs, and then he ties it into a bunch of different other ideas. And I was like, wow, that's a really cool book. They talk about the Denver airport having aliens and all kinds of cool stuff. So fast forward another couple of years, I'm working with another guy and I'm talking to him about Bill Cooper, and I'm talking to him about the Riley Martin, this guy who said he was abducted by aliens on the Howard Stern show. And he says, hey, he's like, if you're into that stuff, I got this VHS tape of a guy named David Icke. It's called Freedom Road.
Okay.
And I borrowed it, and that's when everything just exploded for me. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating.
And David Icke, was he in his reptilian phase? Did he sell you that reptilian
I
view
think
of the
so,
world?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think he was in that story in the 90s. So I guess if you saw this in 2000 something.
Yeah, and he wasn't real popular. The video was just him in a dark room with a little TV projector thing, and him going through his whole and he tied all of the conspiracy ideas together better than Bill Cooper did. And that's what really pulled me in. And then I bought a couple of his books and read through them, and it was like drinking from a fire hose. I didn't really understand how it all fit together. I just thought it just sounded so amazing and fantastical. So that always kind of stuck with me. And then around 2000, well, I guess it was 2011, I got done with my bachelor's degree, and I had a 2-year period before I started my master's. And I was in that mode of just reading, researching, regurgitating. And I remember I was trying to play, I was playing poker online to like for something fun to do. Cause you go, I was working full time and going to college, and there was no free time for 6 years. And then I finally,
Oh, sorry.
Watcher.com.
Sorry, Isaac, I did lost you for like 30 seconds. So if you can come back to what you were saying, the internet had an issue here in the Dome in Quebec. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I basically was trying to find something to do to satisfy my time, and I really enjoyed reading and researching from college, from doing it for so long, for 6 years. And I started IlluminatiWatcher.com. It was a blog where I was just writing about things that interested me, from hip hop to horror movies to various conspiracy ideas and symbolism that I would see in music videos and TV and films. But it was very amateur. And I would often just kind of cite David Icke or Bill Cooper and say, hey, here's this sort of this thing looks like a reptile, like David Icke. I was like, it wasn't anything great.
Okay.
And then in 2012, I started writing my first book, and A Grand Unified Conspiracy Theory. And I wrote that because I'd written a thesis for my bachelor's degree, this 150-page document on a communication system. And I thought, well, if I wrote that, I can write a book. So I wrote my first book, and all this stuff is very amateur, right? When I'm starting out.
And that book is available on your website for free if you sign up for some, right?
Yeah, you really do follow me. Yes, sir. That's right.
Of course, yeah. I'm still a free feed loser. I've got to admit. But I did sign up for that because Macho Man Randy Savage yelled after me, because if you follow Isaac and his podcast Occult Symbolism and Pop Culture, if you if you listening for free, there's a warning. You're gonna be called free feed loser by Randy Macho Man Savage.
That's right. Yeah, not me. That's the Macho Man talking. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, people,
and
people
about
don't
the
like that.
and about the UFOs, I would like you to tell my audience. I was a big fan of ancient aliens. For like 10 years, I was fascinated by what they are saying. And at a certain point, and I guess you helped me open my eyes about that, I realized that Asian Aliens is produced by History Channel, that it's owned by Disney. What Disney tell us, what Hollywood tell us, what all the movies about aliens tell us, it's the same thing that ancient aliens are saying. So and I've got some doubts about the agenda of Disney and all that. I don't trust them. So I say, okay, if they produce that documentary, maybe they try to fool us. And I realized that the message basically for 20 years have been old peoples are seeing stuff in the sky and they think it's gods or demons or angels, but they are fools because they don't know it was friends from another planet that are here to help us. They are extraterrestrial. There's no God. Only fools think about gods because they don't know better. So I realized that it's the opposite. All the civilization, all the media, all the movies, Hollywood, are telling us aliens are coming. What you see in the sky are our friends from another planet and they're gonna contact us, but our government don't want to tell us, so I'm gonna tell you a little secret here. Am I seeing that correctly? Do you see it like that? It's like a big psyop to bring a new religion, something like that?
Yeah, this is the $1 million question to me. This has been, like I said, this is kind of the big thing that got me into all of this field of research, and I go back and forth on it. I've actually written 9 books in total, and one of those books was called The Star Wars Conspiracy, and in that book I talked about some of the Ancient Aliens agenda and the show Ancient Aliens, which is brought to us by Prometheus Entertainment.
Oh,
and I was quite critical. I was quite critical and questioned a lot of the motives and the statements being made. And you can go back and forth and point to there's various components of the message that appear to be incorrect or disinformation, and then there's parts of it that could be true, and it's hard to decipher. For instance, in a lot of the Ancient Aliens folks they'll support the ideas like you see in the Zeitgeist documentary, or what they call the Christ conspiracy, and it's this claim that's made that you see in the movie Heretic. I just did a show on the film Heretic, and he perpetuates the same claim that all these that Christianity stole all of these religious ideas from ancient Egypt, with Osiris and Horus, and Mithras and Dionysus, and they all tell the same exact story of a god who had an immaculate conception, died for 3 days, was resurrected, baptized, the whole works, born on December 25th. And the reality is that none of those things are true. There's no truth to any of it at all. Mithras was born from a rock. There was no talk about being born on December 25th for any of those deities. And it's just so my point is that when it comes to the alien agenda, and look, I love Ancient Aliens, don't get me wrong. I love the show because I enjoy the mental stimulation. Like, some of the stuff is true, and some of the stuff you got to dig a little deeper. And I appreciate that they present it in a manner that I think is fair, in that they say the right words that tell me, hey, they're not trying to tell me this is the 100% ironclad truth. They're just presenting these ideas, and maybe some of it sticks and maybe some of it doesn't. But like I said, I go back and forth on how critical I am of some of the characters in this alien agenda, because there are a lot of strange things, and it depends on which hat I'm wearing. Like, for instance, in my life journey, in 2002, I was baptized Greek Orthodox Christian, and I got turned on to this guy named Father Seraphim Rose. He was a monk who wrote a book about orthodoxy and the religion of the future back in, I believe it was the 60s or 70s. He wrote this book, and he lays out the alien agenda from his Orthodox Christian perspective. And his idea is that everything you see about aliens and life from other planets is a new age deception, and it's all Luciferian. And that's sort of the summation of the whole book. And he lays it out in a way that makes a lot of sense. And all the things he said actually came true in the last, 50 years since he wrote that. So it's a fascinating read, and it seems to make a lot of sense. For example, I'll give one example, and then I'll pass it back to you here. If you read the first, there's a trilogy of books written by Tom DeLonge and Peter Levenda, from To the Stars Academy. Tom DeLonge from Blink 182. Yeah. And in the first book, I've got it's called Secret Machines Gods. That's the first book in the series. It's fascinating because I've read Peter Levenda's books, and he's a very interesting guy. That's a guy who knows everything that there is to know about the occult, in my belief. And when I read the book, it reads like it's Peter Levenda's writing.
Okay.
But anyways, a good chunk of the book, a quarter of the book, he is initiating the masses into the ideas of Gnosticism, and it's this idea of us being sort of trapped in a material prison planet, essentially. And that's me sort of paraphrasing. But to me, I keep going back to Father Seraphim Rose, and I say, like, this is all exactly what he said was going to happen. It's this. They had to first dilute the truth of Christianity, which, I respect that people don't believe in Christianity. There's plenty of criticisms to be had. I'm not here to tell people that I'm right, they're wrong. It's just my belief system.
Me too. It's a Christian show. I'm a Catholic here in Quebec, like the population in general in French Canada are Catholic. So.
Okay, so we're right. We're right, and they're all wrong. Yeah. No, I'm just joking. But
it's funny because it's true.
Well, and the interesting part of it to me is that because look, I went to school for the sciences, and that's where a lot of these occultists. I took courses in engineering and mathematics, and it was funny to me because a lot of the names that I was reading about in the mathematics, Pythagoras, and a bunch of people that created, did a bunch of formula derivations for like differential equations and linear equations. These were all the early science occultists and early alchemists. And
a lot of famous scientists are also famous occultists. Like maybe one of the most fascinating story of the 20th century is the Jack Parson and L. Ron Hubbard connection and the ritual that they did in the desert. The knowledge that Jack Parson had did create finally the NASA, and he was trying to bring the Whore of Babylon. And in the other hand, he had some knowledge that no one had, and he was buddy with the founder of the Scientology, and it did change the 90s. And I had a question about that connection and the cult that became the Scientology, and also the new religions that you're probably familiar with because you live now in Utah. I'm talking about the Mormons. We know that Joseph Smith has been included in the Freemasonry, and I'm wondering what he does with his cult, and also the Scientology, the connection with Jack Parson, who was like in the 21st and 20th century, like the number 2 of the hierarchy of the Satanist well-known people. I think Jack Parson was like the dolphin, or the successor to Aleister Crowley. Maybe I'm stretching a bit here. But I'm wondering if those cults are like tests for the population after that, for like the elites, the Illuminati, who try to control what the people think. They it seems like maybe they create some cult to do some testing. I'm talking like, because when I see the Scientology, how it's working, it's like the New World Order already. You have to tell all your secrets, all your deep thoughts, all your fears to someone in the cult, and then they will be able to blackmail you and use that knowledge against you. Is that crazy? Do you see something here about those cults?
You're correct. And this is kind of I believe they would call these sort of like UFO cults and stuff, but when you look
like
at
Rael and many more example like that,
and this goes back to I'll try to like connect these things and elaborate a little bit. When you try to understand the history of, so like for instance, I just interviewed Dr. Jacques Vallée, and
I heard it.
He confirmed basically to me that there are a lot of elements of the occult, meaning like alchemy, Rosicrucianism, Kabbalah. Like there's different aspects of the occult that if we use those as tools, we will understand the phenomenon better. Like that's kind of what I interpreted his message to me after an hour of conversation. And I believe that is because if you look at the history of the occult, it goes back all the way to the Bible with the story of the Watchers, the fallen angels. They come to Earth, they procreate with the women, they create a race of sort of demigods, the Nephilims, and the flood happens to get rid of the Nephilim. Conspiracies about if they're still here or not, whatever, doesn't really matter. Point is, you had this sort of supernatural event of these fallen angels, these entities that came to Earth. Then, however many years later, thousands of years later, John Dee and Edward Kelly are doing rituals talking to the Enochian angels again.
And they were able to understand their language, the language of the angels, right?
Exactly. And the entities, the angels they basically said, hey guys, if you want to talk to us, here's the language, here's the alphabet. And it was a bunch of sort of glyphs and symbols and oddities. It was on these grids, these tables. And they supposedly had all this great success in talking to these entities, and one of them even made them swap wives to try to bring about the apocalypse.
Yeah, maybe I think it's a weird trick. That part is funny of that story, but
I don't know what's up with these angels.
They seem horny and stuff.
Horny angels.
But they've been horny from the start when they would want to procreate with the human woman. So
exactly, that's and it's interesting because I don't know where you're going to publish this stuff, so I'll be careful with the language I use, but.
I'm not monetized, so go free.
So I think that it's more than the simple sort of pleasures of sex. I think it relates more to the mystical concepts of sex magic, and I'll kind of tie that into this overarching connection here. So you got the Watchers, and then you got John Dee and Edward Kelly who are talking to different entities, and then later Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormons. It's believed and alleged that maybe because he was doing various sort of occult things when he started seeing this spirit. He started talking to his what they would call a holy guardian angel in Thelema, and it was this spirit named Moroni, and Moroni is the one that laid down this prophecy and told him where the golden plates were and how he was going to be this big time leader of this new religion. So Joseph Smith did all this, had this supposedly real experience, and the rest is sort of history as far as the Mormons go. And then decades later,
but he had many wives, because the Mormons are like, they introduced the concept of polygamist, one man with many wives. So at one point it became illegal to do that, but there's some hardcore Mormons still living that way of living right now, right?
Right. Yeah. And in Utah, that's from what I understand, is the LDS disavowed the polygamy thing in order to retain their, I want to say, their tax exempt status with the federal government or something like that. There was something where the Mormon Church was finally like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. And then an offshoot of people called the fundamental LDS, the FLDS.
Okay.
They still adhere to those ideas. In fact, I see them sometimes. They dress in kind of like peculiar outfits and whatever. But the Aleister Crowley took the same Enochian language that John Dee derived, and he did similar things. He did these sort of rituals and summon entities. And then Jack Parsons, again, used the same Enochian language and did the same kind of sex magic rituals for the Babylon working with L. Ron Hubbard from Scientology. And it was interesting because Jack Parsons was insistent that he was going to bring about the apocalypse as well, just like John Dee and Edward Kelly thought they were going to do. And Jack Parsons believed that he was the Antichrist, and he wanted to see an end to religion. And more interesting yet, he thought that he was going to be the catalyst to sort of propel Aleister Crowley's Aeon of Horus, this new age of getting rid of all religions. And it's arguable about whether or not that was successful. Religion has had a steady decline since then. But the interesting part of it is that the Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron said that the symbol for the Age of Crowley was going to be the UFO.
And
this is
and the timeline. So he did the ritual in the desert in 45, 46, I think, and then, or maybe 47, and then we've got the Roswell incident that is well known all over the world in 47. So for them, it was like it did work.
Yeah, it's interesting that if you look online, most of the sources will tell you the Babylon working rituals were done in 46. So that seems to be the consensus. However, if you read Kenneth Grant's book, he's just another prominent magician that was very close with Aleister Crowley. He, in Outside the Circles of Time, he alleges that Jack Parsons started the ritual in 1945, which puts it in line with the Trinity atomic bomb test that also happened in 1945. Because Roswell, of course, being the most famous UFO crash, happened in 47. And a lot of people say, well, because Jack Parsons, when he was doing these Babylon working rituals, Aleister Crowley thought that Parsons was kind of sloppy, and he was worried that Parsons wouldn't properly close these portals that he was opening up. And a lot of people point to this and say, well, there's the proof that Parsons did all these sex magic rituals, opened up these veils, and now we've got the massive UFO flap of the late 40s. But what's more interesting is that in 1945, Dr. Jacques Vallée and Paola Harris, who I interviewed her about their book on the Trinity crash that happened in 1945, so like within, I want to say it's within 3 days of the atomic bomb test that happened.
Another UFO crash in 45, you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And they had an actual artifact from it and multiple witnesses. And it's a fascinating story that it's argued that the atomic bomb actually ripped open a veil. For people who've seen Twin Peaks, you can that kind of fits into the Twin Peaks storyline. It's even in the books by Mark Frost. But the idea here is that either the destruction of primordial matter with the atomic bomb test ripped open a veil, and or Jack Parsons using Aleister Crowley's modified Enochian ritual sex magic rituals also maybe opened a veil. Either way, you've got this inextricable link between the sciences and the occult, which has always been connected, and extraterrestrial life, which Jack Parsons says is part of Aleister Crowley's New Age, the Aeon of Horus, where we will get rid of religion once and for all, which you'll find that recurring theme by all of the occultists. And just to put my personal bias and spin on this, I actually believe, I don't practice occult stuff, but I do believe that there's elements of what they say that are true. I don't think they're just cosplaying a lot of these things.
No,
I think
pretty
there's
sure
power in
it
these
works.
things. I think so too.
And still about Jack Parson, at one point he find the whore of Babylon. It was Marjorie Cameron. She did get pregnant, but she said that she lost the baby somehow, and weirdly, Jack Parson died pretty young in '52 in Hollywood bombing. He was at the end of his life, he was a special effects specialist in Hollywood, and he blows himself up in an explosion. But I'm wondering, do you think that there was a baby from Marjorie Cameron and Jack Parson, or because his goal was to bring a moon child, I think, pretty much like the movie Rosemary's Baby, pretty much. So, do you think it ends there? Because Marjorie Cameron, after the death of Jack Parson, did some movie with another amazingly interesting persona, that is Kenneth Anger, who did bring a lot of satanism in his movie. And what opened my mind about the UFOs and stuff is a movie from, I think, 66, 67, Lucifer Rising, where we see in the beginning of the movie Osiris and Isis. And Osiris, I think, represent the Antichrist, because we want Lucifer Rising is like Osiris bringing back to life in the Antichrist. And at the end of the movie, we see again Osiris and Isis, where they bring UFOs like a space saucer over Egypt. And so I did, okay, those saucers and that satanic movie, like it's the end game. It's like they are telling us the next religion will bring with will go to Earth in a space saucer.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, in Lucifer Rising, you see all of the occult elements, and it sort of culminates with that UFO flying over Luxor with all the obelisks. And again, that represents the male phallus energies. And Kenneth Anger, who was a follower of Aleister Crowley as well, he also subscribed to the theory that Jack Parsons successfully completed the Babylon working ritual and manifested Marjorie Cameron into his life. So Kenneth Anger also believed Marjorie Cameron was part of the efforts to bring about the Aeon of Horus, and he was envisioning this final war on the astral plane, like in a magical plane between Christianity and Lucifer. And you see that in a lot of his, there's a lot of dark sort of elements to his films. And we're not even going to get into, like, Bobby Beausoleil from the Manson family was in one of them.
That's fascinating. Oh, yeah.
Oh, super fascinating.
And he was one of the killer of Sharon Tate, who was married to Roman Polanski, who did Rosemary's Baby. With Anton LaVey as a specialist to be sure that the ritual is like kosher and stuff. I think that Rosemary's Baby is probably the most most important movie about the Satanism, where if you study that movie correctly, you will understand the plan, and it's like a remix of what Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron tried to did, maybe.
Yeah, and as far as officially, Marjorie Cameron and Jack Parsons weren't successful in making a baby, but after his death, she would continue to do occult rituals to try to perform. And don't ask me how this works, but she would try to have sex with Jack Parsons in the astral realm, in the afterlife somehow.
Like, is this maybe with a phallus that the 14 parts of maybe something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Just like the story of Osiris, right? Like maybe she, these people, they subscribe to a different view of the world for sure. And she continued to, after Parsons' death, she continued to be involved with a lot of prominent sort of occult UFO type folks. I think she was dating like Bert Schonenberg and her life story is fascinating. I did a 3-part series many years ago on a book written about her called The Wormwood Star. She's kind of the most interesting name most people haven't ever heard of, because she lived a fascinating life. But the point being is that a lot of these folks, they subscribed to the, Crowley believed that Christianity was this curse of the world. Parsons called it the lying hypocrisy, and they all thought that the oppression of the free will that they believed that the church was instilling in its members was holding us back from evolving, and evolving it into what exactly? Well, when you dig into all this occult stuff and Helena Blavatsky, it's always about evolving us into the next life form, which is going to be artificial intelligence. This is what I've been campaigning on since my first book in 2012. It's the digital matrix. They want to pursue this at all costs. And again, like I said, there's a mix of science blended with the occult that inspires this path. Much like the early pulp comics inspired space travel, the science fiction and cyberpunk stories are going to fuel this transition of people trying to sort of check out of this simulation world, this prison planet, and enter into this digital matrix world that's going to be run by the big tech bros. And I don't think it's going to be a better place. But once you see AI embedded deep enough, which is coming much faster than any of us are aware of, it's moving exponentially fast.
Yes.
That's what I've been saying for many years now, is we have to really start wrapping our heads around this, especially if you hold a religious or Christian worldview, as to what path you want to take, because I don't know. I have a lot of issues with where we're headed.
I think it's the end game, like in the foundation of the Illuminati by your granddaddy, someone like that, Adam Weishaupt. That's why you're Isaac Weishaupt. Your Illuminati confirm, obviously. No, it's just a funny name that you like. It's like just for fun, you took that name for your persona.
I totally forgot to bring that up. Yeah, that's not my real name.
Matter. Cosmos is not my real name also, so we're
you got to be careful in this field of research. There's a lot of strange folks out there.
Yeah, but the Illuminati seems, if we study that, they push for communism all over the world. It seems like it's created to create two classes of people: the illuminated, those who know, and the useless eaters that get nothing and be happy. So their plans are over like 250 years and still going on. And in the communism, it says that the ideal communism is would govern itself. So now I understand that maybe that what they want is they want communism with the AI that take the decision for us.
I could see that. Yeah, totally. That, in fact, I'm reading 1984 right now, the book by George Orwell, and he advocated for democratic socialism, and he was basically trying to warn us about the extreme left and the extreme right. And on the extreme left, of course, you've got authoritarian communism, and on the right, you've got fascist dictatorships. And either way, it suppresses the democratic socialist values that I agree with. But when you look at the Great Reset values of the World Economic Forum, you'll see that there is this idea that they can ration out in the most perfect, equal manner a variety of resources. And like in the one book, they talk about putting our utility usages on a blockchain for monitoring, and to me that's full of folly, right? That opens up to abuse, because it's going to be like if it's no different than these big Hollywood celebrities telling us to spend less gas fuel in their own private jets, right? It's like the same thing. It's this pure hypocritic thing that's like, well, the peasants shouldn't have to, like, for instance, out in Utah, like we had a wood burning stove, and the state was like, hey, we've got all this problem with the air being dirty in the winter because of this inversion thing we have out here. And I agreed with that, because I'm like, yeah, because like my throat would swell up because the air would be so dirty. And they did this big study, and half of the pollution was through the corporations, specifically. We have oil refineries out here, and they didn't want to put any limitations on them. They weren't going to tell them to slow down on the bad red air days. It was like they get to do whatever they want. But with me and my wood burning stove, like, you can't burn your wood burning stove today. And it was fine, because I don't mind taking one for the team, but I'm also like, we should all take one for the team. And you know, I don't know. This goes into a bunch of philosophies.
Yeah, in Quebec we've seen a lot of stuff like that, and they banned our wood stove here in Quebec for another reason also, because the people here in the Dome are so easy to manipulate. It's amazing. You should have seen what happened here in the COVID era. We've got two curfews, like you cannot go out of your house after 8 o'clock for like 6 months, and the year after that, same thing for many months. And there were some people on TV where they bring kids and they ask the kid what you should do if you see someone that is unvaccinated. You call the cops? Ah, good. Wow. Yeah. And the other little girls, yeah, you should take them all your rights away one by one until they submit. So it was amazing. You've got a commentator here. He says they should bring them to the North Pole in a prison, all the unvaccinated, and they were singing that on TV.
Yeah, that was major overreaction for sure. And I lived in Utah, which is a very right wing state, and I'm not like a heavy right winger. I'm pretty moderate, and but I will hand it to them that, like, living in Utah, like, they were pretty reasonable about things, and sort of like let people make their own choices of what they wanted to do with their health. And I respected that, and I thought that was a fair sort of take on it, you know. But yeah, I think that was like a little test to see how much power they could sort of.
I think Quebec or the French Canada is like a test. We exist just to create conflict with the rest of Canada, and to see how dumb they can be, how hard we can push them to do some stupid stuff. It's part of my mission to try to break that matrix, and it's gonna bring me to my next question, because before you on the show, we had someone who will do and did in the past a conference about the movie The Matrix and how it relates to our life. And I want to, because The Matrix is really popular in the awake or the rebellion, the right wing, or the I don't know, the red pill people, or I don't know how you call this. In French, we call this la résistance. So the Matrix is really popular, but there's many layers of analysis. I know you dig deep on this one. What do you think that those directors that was two brothers are now two sisters? What do you think they were trying to tell us? Is that a warning, or is like what's your viewpoint on that Matrix movie and series?
So I'm a huge fan of the movies, and I think it's fascinating because I've always been into cyberpunk movies, and it's kind of the best one, I think.
Yeah, where there's a high tech, low life. Yeah, I think you said that on your last show, and it's
that's kind of it's the defining quality of it, right? And while it's a bleak view of where humanity could take us, there's a lot of occult themes wrapped into the storyline, and it's just packed full of symbolism, right? Going all the way back to Neo. He's the neophyte, he's the initiate, and his journey starts with his in the hero's journey, they call it the call to action. It starts when he sees this woman with the tattoo of the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, which is a whole initiatory tale of
follow the white rabbit,
of going following the white rabbit and going down the rabbit hole, and you go underground where you approach the shadow, you approach the veil, and then you you face death and you come back reborn. And that's the story of Neo's journey. Is in fact, he literally, when he starts the journey to when he's with Morpheus, and they first put that plug in the back of his head, and he touches that mirror. The mirror has that liquid effect, if you recall, and that's an attribute that you find with portals, right? And I'm doing a research on a big show about portals, and water and portals and mirrors. They all represent the gateways to accessing the unconscious or the collective unconscious. And it's a lot of sort of philosophy in these movies, and that's why I like them. I like them because it makes you think, and it all goes back to Plato's cave, the allegory of the cave, and like questioning what is real and what can we know for sure is real. And that's kind of the whole story of the Matrix, is unpacking the different philosophies of it, and all the way to, like, there's a key maker, and in the occult doctrines, there's this idea that you can unlock the mysteries with the right keys, whether that be secret handshakes or secret names or secret words, which is also, I don't want to throw too much out there, but it's also part of like the LDS endowments, the Mormon endowment ceremonies that they do at the temples. They're given a secret name, and they approach a veil, and they have to say the secret name, and then they do the correct sort of Freemasonic handshake, and they can now pierce the veil, and they go into this.
I didn't know that. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there's in fact, I'm going to release a show. I just interviewed a guy who really broke down the whole thing for me. So that's going to be on my podcast next week, discussing the LDS endowment ceremonies. It's fascinating stuff with like, the supposed magic underwear that has the Freemason symbols. It's an interesting take on it for sure, but the Matrix is it's just a fun sort of thought experiment,
but
right?
You talked about Gnosticism before, and there's a big Gnostic part in the Matrix for me, because we're in the character of Neo, is the hero, and what he does, he is the Illuminati, and he will try to beat or to defeat the Matrix, which is the world that it's represented like it's oppressed. And like we play Lucifer, the adversary to the creator of the Matrix, and it's like the same thing in Lego Movie, where we've got this little character in this world that it seems oppressive, and he's got to fight the creator. So I see that like that part, or the last movie, Wicked, that where we follow the bad witch, where she live in the world which is oppressive, and she's have to fight the creator, which is Wizard of Oz, who is a fraud. So in a lot of movies from Hollywood, we play or we follow or we cheer for a character that represents Lucifer.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good thought. A good way of looking at it. Yeah, and that's what Neo, he approaches the architect, and that architect in the movies he represents the demiurge, or the Yaldabaoth. That's sort of the cruel creator that keeps us trapped into this never-ending loop.
Truman Show is another example. With exactly that. He knows that something is wrong with this world. The creator is Christian, and he's got to find a way. And there's always a female character that I think represents Sophia in the Gnostic religion of view of life.
Yeah, the Pistis Sophia. That's in the Truman Show. That's that. I can't remember her name. It's the woman that he keeps yearning after. And he doesn't know her, but he knows her somehow. And that's the Sophia of Gnosticism. She's here to guide mankind into finding the true path of enlightenment, back to what they call the pleroma, and to escape this sort of prison material planet that we're stuck in. And we're forced to reincarnate constantly and keep sort of suffering is kind of how they look at it.
Okay. In the music industry, it seems like all the singers from maybe the 50s and maybe before that, they all have a role to play in the big picture, and it's impossible for them to break free of that industry. And if you try to do so, it's like the most dangerous thing that you can try to do. If I quote like what happened to Sam Cooke, and after that, because he was trying to be independent and it got killed mysteriously. We've got Otis Redding, who same thing. He tried to go independent with James Brown, and he died in a plane crash. Al Green, they tried to kill him. Michael Jackson and Prince, all had like big. They wanted to be free as an artist, but the industry says no. Am I wrong? Is that something that all the artists that we hear on radio are there in the big theater piece, and they've got a role to play in that?
In fact, Prince, his death anniversary was just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, all these artists, they die like very young, and I mean, you got to think that these people have access to probably the best healthcare, the best nutrition. I mean, they probably got personal doctors. I mean, and you could argue, it's hard to know, because you could argue that Michael Jackson was a really unwell person if it's true that he was having to take these sort of anesthesias just to sleep and stuff. So like there's an element of that I think, well, I mean, how long can you do that before it takes you out? But it is strange how it's like if you rebel against the system that made you, they make sure you pay the price for it. And you know, you always hear these stories about the Faustian bargain and selling your soul to the devil.
Exactly.
And I don't know if that's a literal thing that these people go through. I argue that it could be, but even if it's not, maybe it's their way of sort of conveying the situation that they're in, that they have to sort of sign the dotted line, and if they want the fame, they've got a new master that they've got to kind of do everything for, you know.
But it seems like a lot of a successful singer or Hollywood stars slip that in there somewhere, that they did sign. They sell their soul to the devils. We heard Rihanna said so. We heard Katy Perry said so, and Bob Dylan said so. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that part, because they don't understand that you lose at the end, and maybe you're gonna be famous for a couple years, but eternity is really long, especially at the end. I mean, how can they fall for that?
I have an idea on that. If you read Roseanne Barr's book, I don't remember the title of it, but she wrote a book, and I did a whole show about it. And in the book, she tells the story of her literally making a Faustian bargain for fame.
When she was a kid, I think.
When she was younger, yeah. And she does this Faustian pact, and then years later, she's like, oh, crap, I shouldn't have done that. And she talks to this Kabbalistic priest, and the Kabbalistic priest, I forget how he lays it on her, but he basically says like, oh, you don't even have to worry about it. Like, you're fine. Don't even trip on it. And there must be some kind of messaging that they get that tells them that they can renege on that deal. You know, but every movie and story I've ever seen tells me otherwise. I wouldn't make that deal, but I got to think that they are either desperate enough or don't really believe that there's going to be a consequence, and that's why they do it.
Okay, and talking about that Faustian deal, one of the most famous in the 28th century is Robert Johnson. Okay, the blues guitarist, and I don't know if you have seen it. If you didn't, I'm sure you will have in the next few weeks or months a show about that. The hit movie Sinners, that it's out right now. Have you heard about it?
Okay, I've heard about it.
You will definitely do 2 or 3 parts on that show. On that movie, for sure.
Really?
First, it's really good and entertaining. It has a lot of success, and it's really dangerous for 2-3 reasons, I think. First, it's like the movie Birth of a Nation inverted. Like all the good characters that we follow, that we like in the movie, are black folks. that they're gonna open a blues joint in the south of the U.S. And all the white characters, there are two types. There's KKK member that they're gonna kill, and vampires. So half of the movie is like a time capsule piece about being black in the south and dealing with racist whites, and the other half, it's those whites are vampires that's gonna come in the party to kill us all. And in that and there's a big promotion of the witchcraft in the movie, because usually when we've got vampire, there's Christian stuff that we can use against the vampires, like the cross or the holy water and stuff. But in that movie, it doesn't work at all. The only thing that can save them is witchcraft. And the main character of the movie is Robert Johnson. He's got another name, but he's a really talented blues player whose father is a pastor, and it says, don't dance with the devil, don't go play in those joints where everybody is degenerate. And he says, no, I want to play the blues. And he played the blues. And if you're gonna need to see that, but you also need to stay for the credit, because there's like a post-credit scene where it's buckle up what's going on with that deal with the devil and the witchcraft. So you've got to I can't wait to hear you. Sinners. And because it pushed racism, which is no good in any direction, and also Christ doesn't work, and you need to go to witchcraft, and like everybody is bad in that movie, even the main character, no one is good. So there's bad people and evil people in that movie. Recently, me personally, I'm like a pro-Trump right-wing guy, so I like the Trump team. And in the last 2-3 years, Elon Musk was helping Trump a lot, and he bought Twitter, rename it X and stuff. So far, I pretty much like what Elon Musk does, but I did notice that you don't trust the guy at all. You think he's there to bring us faster to the what is suspicious about Elon Musk from your point of view?
Well, it's the there's a few things, and like I guess some of the major themes that I don't trust. I have a general overall distrust of elites and people with that much money and power. But on top of that, for years he was warning us about AI, and now he's sort of accelerating it and fueling it up. And the symbolism he uses is what's alarming to me, because like with his AI Grok, he used to have the symbol was the letter X and I,
like 11, like magic
11, which is the number of magic for Aleister Crowley, right? So the number 11 is the number for magic, but then he changed it recently to Saturn, which is a more occulted symbol, and Saturn represents the first stage of alchemy. It represents the initiation it represents the initiate going through this journey that starts out with what they call the Negredo, and Saturn represents in the occult this adversarial force of limitations. And only when the initiate decides it can go up to that point and face the adversary, face death, can it sort of be reborn and be enlightened. And you see this with stories like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where Commander Bowman goes out to this wormhole by Saturn, and in the movie it's Jupiter, but the story Arthur C. Clarke wrote, it's Saturn, and it starts this journey of mankind evolving into digital consciousness. It's what's described in the 4 sequels of the book. It talks about mankind's inevitable evolution into digital consciousness, and that's what I think Elon Musk is into, and that's why he's got like that Neuralink cap, and he talks about breakaway civilizations on Mars. And I don't buy that
stuff. I don't like his space program. I think there's a lot of shady stuff about space program. I'm not sure it's real, that stuff. And when they push, we're gonna go to Mars, like next year or in 2 years. Come on, give me a
We ain't
break.
doing that. We ain't going to Mars.
I don't
it's
think
going to be
so.
the consolation prize is, well, how about a digital matrix? How about that instead? You know, that's what that's what they're going to get us into.
Yeah. One last one about Kubrick. It seems like Stanley Kubrick is maybe the only movie director who really tried to warn us about stuff and say more that you should do. You should tell. In Eyes Wide Shut, it's clear. No, it's not clear, but I see it clearly now. There's many theories about what have been cut in the movie because Stanley Kubrick died a couple weeks before the movie was released. Some say that some producer saw the movie. There was a big argument between the producers and Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick died, and in that story, like some 20-25 minutes of the movie have been cut. What do you think happened in that Eyes Wide Shut movie? What do you think have been cut?
Yeah, that's a great one. I did a lecture on this in Las Vegas, and I'm planning on doing another lecture of it in Salt Lake City here this year. I don't know when, hopefully soon. But anyway, the whole movie Eyes Wide Shut is just packed full of interesting ideas that he was so far ahead of his time. You can see different elements of sort of Epstein operations with this modeling stuff and satanic parties and
MK
orgies.
Ultra,
Yeah, MK Ultra, like
Alice,
it's kind of all in there. Alice in
the
Wonderland, like there's so many
butterflies,
themes,
uh-huh.
and
Skulls and
the
Bone at one point.
yeah, there's this sort of heavy secret society element, but the whole idea that I think he's trying to present to us is this idea that there's two versions of reality and there's two classes in America, and Tom Cruise is on the cusp of sort of joining this elite class, and that's what it's all about, is sort of initiating him and seeing if he can keep the secrets. You know, it seems to be just tests to see if he can hold these secrets that they keep presenting to him of Mandy overdosing and Ziegler, you know, messing around with her in the bathroom, and then him going to this party and seeing all kinds of crazy stuff, and lots of threats happening and lots of questions about where it goes. And then on top of that, you've got the major reveal is their daughter Helena sort of being
Disappearing.
contributed to the elite secret society at the end
Yeah.
of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
But you have to be really you have to know where to look and what you
oh
to
yeah,
look
you got to
for,
lock
because
in. You're not not
you
going to see
can
it.
watch that movie and only thinking that it's a love story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so much to unpack in it. I wrote a book called Kubrick's Code in 2014, and looking back on it, I'm like, man, there's so much more to it. That's why in my podcast series, I go through, I think, like 6 different episodes unpacking the movie, the book written about the movie, the novella that it's based upon.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes on and on. It's a massive rabbit hole.
And there's another version of Eyes Wide Shut in the 60s that I saw with unpack some of we can understand a bit more about that. And there's a theory that maybe it would be the easiest one, is when Tom Cruise goes to the gates of the leader of the Illuminati group, someone give him a letter. In that letter, we see it's your second warning. Stop doing some investigation. After that, we see him go back to Nicole Kidman. We don't know exactly what have been said, but we see that they are both crying in the morning, and then they've got to give their daughter to the group. But the theory was that on that paper it was said, you have to give us the only thing that has been changed is what has been written on that paper, and then he will understand there that he went too far, he was too curious, and the price is his daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the theories I've seen, and it does fit, because when you watch the movie, the camera cuts and you can't there's not you can't clearly tell that it's Tom Cruise holding this paper and reading it, but it just kind of cuts from the paper to his face to the the paper. So it's possible that the executives at Warner Brothers swapped that out after Kubrick's death, because Kubrick had screened the movie in I think March, and he died like within a week of screening it.
I think it's July 16, like an important date for the Illuminati. I heard you'll not talked about it. I think it's some, I don't know.
Yeah, I did a show with Donut, I think, talking about this. It was July 16, 1999 was the contractual date Kubrick was requiring the release of this movie in the theaters, and that lines up
the date of
30 years after Apollo 11's launch, which there's all those theories that Jay Widener and the greats before me have come up with about The Shining being a movie about the fake moon landing and from Apollo 11. And then July 16th, 1945 is when we had the Trinity bomb test, and there you go, back to the beginning again.
Oh yeah, all right. So it's been fascinating. So I want you to tell us where we can find your stuff, because you've got a lot of names, and you had some issues with names in the past. You've got Isaac Weishaupt name. You've got your website is Illuminati Watcher. Your podcast was called Conspiracy Theory and Unpopular Culture, but then you had a beef with the conspiracy theory and you changed your name. So how we can find you easily, and why did you change your name? Why you don't like the conspiracy theories anymore?
Well, this is why people need to listen to me, because I am a conspiracy guy. I'm paranoid to the nth degree, and that's I had this, the podcast was called from 2014 to 2021. I called it Conspiracy Theories and Unpopular Culture.
Yeah.
There was a lot of weird things happening within the conspiracy movement that's a whole show we could do, that I think that the movement is being lots of disinformation happening within it. And that goes into a whole host of other territories. But I changed the name to Occult Symbolism and Pop Culture because that aligned more with what my angle was, because I talk conspiracy theories, but it's maybe a fraction of the shows, right? It just depends. Sometimes I'm heavy on conspiracy, sometimes I'm heavily on the occult, but that was more of my lane of expertise. So I was like, all right, let me call it that, because a lot of people didn't like that I wasn't talking about this, that, or the other in the conspiracy world. And then I also got super paranoid because in 21, 22, there was a lot of censorship things going on, and there was lots of threats coming down, and I just thought, man, I don't want to lose it all. So I just changed it, because I had been banned off a million things in the past.
Yeah, I think
that was part of the reason.
Taylor Swift team did bring down your channel. At one point, you did an analysis on a music video. I think, Look What You Made Me Do. I think one is more yes. Occult. And the Taylor Swift team says, no, you don't talk about our stars like that. You have to go down. That's right.
True. I've got the screenshots to prove it. Yeah, their management team torched my YouTube channel, and I've had my second YouTube channel just got torched a couple months ago, and yeah, it's constant censorship and harassment. I'm telling you, it's if you've been around this game long enough of this subculture, you kind of get used to it, and it just sucks, but that's just the way this thing goes. So
yeah, because I wasn't aware that people get banned before Alex Jones or before the COVID the vaccine. Talk about that. So if you say bad things about big stars, it's really dangerous for your channel, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. It's for sure. In fact, if you go to IlluminatiWatcher.com, up top on the menu, I've got a Start Here tab, and on that tab, you can listen to a 3-hour show that I talk about who I am, my background, and what my personal biases and blind spots are, so you know what you're getting into if you listen to my show. But then below that, I've got a timeline of my saga of censorship.
Okay, I've got it here.
And it kind of runs through all the censorship I've experienced. And I'm a one-man army. Some of these guys have teams behind them. I don't. I do literally every bit of my whole thing by myself, from podcasting to writing books to editing them to website publishing. That's why I've got this amateur vibe, because I'm literally the only guy on my team.
So. But you're the puppet of nobody. So you're
Exactly,
home boss, and it's really important.
Exactly.
And like I do, so I choose every subject myself. Sometimes I hit a home run. Sometimes I swing. But
Nobody cares sometimes, and you're like, oh, why did I spend all my effort on this topic? But
yeah, and you just the last one. You spend like 50 shows about Twin Peaks. What was because you did sell it to me, and I tried it, but I always find it that too boring to continue, because I think it's really it's gonna get good on the season 2 or stuff, because I watched like the 2-3 first episode, and I had too much thing to do. But what is so amazing, so you had to spend many hours and 50 shows about a teleseries from the 90s. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I know. Everyone's probably wondering this question, because I get a lot of grief for that. But yeah, I agree with you, because when I tried to watch Twin Peaks multiple times over the years, every time it's like Ambien, I just fallen asleep. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand why people like this show. And I was really sick one year, and I'd seen everything there was to see, and I thought, let me try this Twin Peaks one more time. And I just kind of suffered through it. And there was some episodes were really interesting, some were really boring, and some were really campy and stupid. And I remember there was 2 guys in Utah here that I talked to that were really into Twin Peaks and pushing me to watch it. And I would write them, I'm like, are you sure this gets good? Because I'm at this point and I hate it. I literally hated this show.
Okay.
And they were like, dude, you got to keep going. So I kept going. Long story short, I kept going, and I made it through, watched all of it, all season 1, season 2, the movie, season 3. And I got done with season 3, and I was like, well, I don't know. It was okay, I guess. And then I went back to like, well, I'm glad I finished it. Let me watch things I want to watch. But my mind kept thinking about it. It was this splinter in the back of my mind. And I just kept thinking about it. And then I started rewatching it. And then all the ideas of the occult and symbolism dropped out of everything. And I watched it again, and I've seen it multiple times now. I mean, this is, 50 plus hours of content. And it's just the most amazing, inspiring, interesting dream world to experience. I don't know how to explain it. People who get into Twin Peaks, they get it. And people who don't, they hate it. And most people hate it. So.
And it's from David Lynch. So do you think he's trying to do good, or he's trying to deceive us? So is it like Kubrick, who tried to warn us of something, or he tried to bury us deeper in the rabbit hole?
I have a blind spot for a few things, and that's David Lynch, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Kubrick.
Okay.
So I'm not a good person to ask, but no, I don't think Lynch was deceiving us. I think what he was doing, because he practiced transcendental meditation his whole life, so he was in this habit of touching down into what he called the unified field, which is in Carl Jungian terms, the collective unconscious. And he would retrieve different ideas from this repository of archetypes, and he would present them in Twin Peaks. And it's very much like going through a dream world. When you watch it, you pick up on it, and you sort of tune into this dream world, is what it feels like. And they say it multiple times in the show, right? Like Audrey has this iconic line, says, "Isn't it too dreamy?" And it's because this is the collective unconscious representation of the unified field, and you see all aspects of life, from the good to the bad to the evil to the beautiful to love to hate. It's all there in this whole show, and it's the most amazing piece of art if people can have the patience to go through it. But I at Cosmos, I totally understand that you were like, dude, this is boring, I hate it, because I was there too.
Okay.
So like,
but so the next time I'm gonna get sick, I'm gonna think about you, and I'm gonna plunge. I'm gonna watch it again.
I'm warning you. Once it grabs you, I mean, I'm telling you, it was like 2 years where it's all I could think about. And as you know, because I did 55 episodes on it, so
I've listened to a couple of them, but since I'm a free feed loser, I don't have anything. But I did enjoy, even though I didn't watch the shows, I still enjoyed your podcast about it, because starting
Good.
from what's happening in the show, you talk about a lot of concepts that are really interesting, and I can relate to other stuff that he did. It was amazingly interesting, way longer than I thought, so that was great. So now I've got to translate it in French, so that interview will be in both language. So if you want to listen to it in English, look on my YouTube page or Rumble page. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and I could continue a lot more because all the subject that you're talking about, I'm passionate about, and I can't wait for your next show every week. I listen to you in the cars, and
that's great. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Great. So to reach you, the easiest way is your website, Illuminati Watchers, and from there we can listen to your podcast on every podcast platform. And you've got also a Rumble page and a YouTube, but YouTube, you've got a love and hate relationship with that, right?
Right. And I've also started putting videos on my Spotify too. If people find my podcast, Occult Symbolism and Pop Culture on Spotify, you're going to start seeing the video version on there. I'm still trying to iron out the details of how I want to do that because a bunch of stuff. But anyway, the video version
it's hard for everybody. So it's been a pleasure. It's been great. Talk to you.
Absolutely. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, Isaac.